Good morning and welcome. We have a lot to cover today, and we begin with the reported Marlins sale by the man who may be the most unpopular team owner in South Florida history.
That, of course, is Jeffrey Loria. It looks like he's going to make a killing selling the Marlins for more than $1 billion. Yes, that is a billion with a B, to a group headed by Jeb Bush and Derek Jeter. Loria bought the Marlins for $158 million. That's hardly chump change. So you may wonder, how is he going to make 10 times his original investment? The answer is that shiny new baseball stadium, Marlins Park, that Miami-Dade County taxpayers bought for him and the team. Under the terms of the deal, the county is supposed to get a cut of any team sale, but now that's open to question. It really depends on when the sale takes place.
We are going to talk all about that and a variety of other news developments with the chair of the Miami-Dade County Commission, Esteban Bovo. He's been a county commissioner since 2011 and also a former state representative. Good morning to the chair.
Good morning.
Good morning. Great to have you come in.
My pleasure to be here.
When you heard that Jeb Bush, Derek Jeter, their group, had won the bidding process apparently and will be the new owners, what did you think?
Well, obviously, I think like everyone, we're happy to see a positive direction. We've all, as baseball fans, been frustrated when the Marlins do well, then are dismantled instantly for financial terms. I'm a Yankee fan, so Derek Jeter being involved, that's a good thing, I guess. And being a Republican, Jeb Bush being involved, I guess, is a good thing. But I'm encouraged by this positive movement.
Respected figures, both Jeb Bush, Derek Jeter,
both,
and we suspect the members of their group, whoever they are, we don't know yet.
Well, no, I think the details the devil's in the details. We need to find out now where the financial group comes from. It's clear that Jeter and Jeb are not the main investors, so we'll see how that works out.
All right, so the elephant in the room is the funding, as it's always been for the Marlins. The county is paying bonds that will become, what, $2 billion in the next 40 years.
Overpaid, yes.
Overpaid for a stadium. And in that deal, the county gets 5% of the increase in value of the team if the team is sold by March 31st of next year. So for those of us who are always skeptical, is there a chance that this is going to be drawn out so that the closing comes April 1st or after and the county is cut out of any kind of profit sharing?
Glenn, unfortunately, the county's really not seated at the table in these negotiations. We can aspirationally hope that this gets done before that red line in the sand, but there's no urgency, I would imagine, on the Marlins' part to do this before that date, and we have no leverage, to be honest with you.
So we will simply have to wait and see how it plays out, but likelihood is Miami-Dade County not going to get anything or very little.
It was a bad deal to begin with, and it just is a reminder how bad this deal was.
Well, if there's, a $1 billion profit is not the value of the team. How do you put a valuation on the team? I mean, what would the county share be? And I realize this is all speculation at the moment, but what kind of money are we talking about?
Well, I've heard you mentioned, I think it was a 10% or 5% of the sale
the increase in value.
The increase. I don't know what the dollar amount would be. I'd asked one of our deputy mayors that exact question: what's in it for us? And the simple answer was nothing is in it for us. This is a bad deal that now looks even worse when the reality hits. There's a sale, there's an increase. And I think the value of a franchise probably encompasses a lot of things. One is the market it's in, a stadium deal, which they have a long-term stadium deal, plus the profits of that stadium goes to the team. The county really, and the city of Miami both got whacked.
Can I ask you just one more?
I think is a kind word.
Can I just ask one more question relative to that deal and what the county's paying? A lot of that, the county share, is hotel taxes. And this year, we find out just in the past week that the hotel taxes are down for the county this year, and significantly. What happens if hotel taxes aren't there to pay the portion of the bond debt that the county owes?
Normally, when the county goes into these deals and has a pledge of support, it is backed by the taxpayers ultimately. All these bond deals are backed by the taxpayers. I mean, you have your gimmicks to be able to pay for it. Incidentally, we're working now on Airbnb legislation in order to capture some of that lost revenue that's been going to a non-hotel user. But yes, we need to be very mindful that if we don't have the revenues, we got to find them someplace.
All right, Chairman Bovo, let me ask you about a really continuing hot topic, which is sanctuary cities, sanctuary communities, where the allegation always is that the local government does not cooperate with federal immigration officials. You chaired that very long 4 or 5 hour meeting several months ago, where the commission and you voted in the affirmative 9-3 to support the mayor that any ICE detainer for a unauthorized immigrant in our jail who had been arrested would be turned over to immigration officials. Now, this federal judge's ruling this week that said that the executive order from the president was unconstitutional and cited the case, in fact, of what happened to Mayor Jimenez. Does that vindicate, you think, the judgment that you and your 8 other commissioners made and the mayor on sanctuary cities and saying we are not in compliance, we are in compliance with the law?
We've always struggled with the idea of what is a sanctuary city. We've never really understood what that term is. You know, our police department has never acted as a de facto immigration force. I recall when a couple of years ago we made a decision not to honor the ICE detention request simply for a budgetary reason. It wasn't a philosophical issue. It wasn't an anti-immigration or...
They weren't compensating the county for the cost of keeping the inmates for several days.
Exactly, and I think that was the decision that the commission made at that moment. Now, obviously, with the change in administration, a lot of the rhetoric that comes out with the administration, and quite honestly, this now bleeds into a lot of our requests from the federal government, specifically on transportation issues that obviously has been a big issue for us. You know, we felt, or 9 of us felt, along with the mayor, that the right decision was to say, look, we'll be supportive of the Trump administration. But again, I think it's important. I know it's been emphasized here in the program. Our police department definitely has not been asked, is not going to be instructed, and none of us are going to condone them acting as ICE agents.
You know, it was interesting in the opinion of the San Francisco federal judge that struck down the idea of taking funding away from sanctuary cities. Miami-Dade County got a little shout out. Mayor Jimenez was mentioned, and in the context of the mayor's actions relative to President Trump's decision was an indication that it had an effect. So it was interesting that he used that in context to strike down this. But at the state level, the state legislature right now, the House, has a bill that will obviously go nowhere because the Senate is not taking it up, to do many of the same things that President Trump's directive did, penalize sanctuary cities. As a former state representative, what do you think of that? What do you make of that? That's a federal territory, isn't it?
It is a federal territory, and when I was in the legislature, I was the chair of the Hispanic Caucus, and at that time, we were dealing with a lot of the immigration rhetoric 3 years ago, and this just, you know, kind of gets revisited over and over again. Look, this kind of goes into a very weird direction when you're talking about a country that should be pro-immigration, pro-legal immigration, as opposed to illegal immigration. And a lot of us scratch our heads when we hear of folks that are here illegally and yet are still committing crimes while they're here illegally. So, you know, it all depends on what part of the country you're at, and including in our state, what part of the state you are at. You know, there is an immigration community that helps put a lot of food on our tables just simply by the labor that they supply, and it would be disingenuous for us to kind of like turn a blind eye to that.
Yeah. Before we run out of time, I need to ask you about a bill going through the state legislature, which adjourns next week, this coming week, that would raise the homestead exemption.
Yes.
And it would have a huge or a large impact on revenues for Miami-Dade County. How big an impact?
It would be devastating to the local governments. Miami-Dade County would suffer probably around a $73 million hit to their budget. That means we would be confronted with 1 or 2 decisions: either slash our budget drastically, we've done that before and it's very painful, or raise taxes. And I could tell you, as a conservative voice on our board, and I strongly believe in being conservative and being as thorough in your budget process as possible, you don't want to slip into this abyss of being irresponsible. I would ask some of my former colleagues, why not consider cutting of the sales tax, which directly then impacts the state budget. But let's remind ourselves that local governments are the ones that provide that frontline service, our day-to-day operation.
Excuse me, there would have to be a referendum on raising statewide referendum.
It'll pass, of course.
But it'll
yes,
pass.
yes. The voters would have to opine on this, and obviously on an election year, ask to reduce your taxes.
Right.
All of us are going to be supportive of that.
Yeah. You brought up transportation
Yes.
funding. I know you are the transportation czar on that commission. Michael was mentioning earlier that at the state level, the state is about to adjourn. Are you and is the county getting what you had hoped and expected and wanted in funding for the SMART plan for the county's long-term transportation corridors?
Yeah, we're very encouraged. Representative Nunez, who's the Speaker Pro Temp, Senator Rene Garcia, Senator Aniceto Flores have been champions of ours in Tallahassee. They will be passing this week, hopefully, a bill that will give a mechanism of funding from MDX toll revenue to the county. They would be controlled jointly. MDX would have a role in this, but in essence, it starts freeing up money for our SMART plan, which is something that all municipalities, county government, all elected officials really in Miami-Dade County have joined now in a chorus that this is our plan. It fulfills the false promises of the PTP, and we need to be just. Government, elected officials lied to the public many years ago.
I see our next segment happening right here. I see that next segment coming.
So hopefully we'll be able now to fulfill that promise that was made a couple of years ago.
Yeah, hope so. All right, Steve Bovo, great to have you come
Thank
in.
you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much.
Come back.
Thank you. My pleasure.
We'll talk about New County Civil Courthouse, other things which are on your agenda.
Next up, unsettling news for Haitians currently living in South Florida and across the country who are temporarily protected at the moment. That may be coming to an end. Stay with us.